Josephine Canny, Republican. Ladies and gentlemen, it's April 1st, so 2026. But, all right, we got a couple things we're going to talk about. I'm try and be quick with this. It's probably about 1:30 in the morning, which is normal for me. Anyway, we had a visitor at the Patriots Conference, David Clements. And for those that don't know who he is, David Clements is a former prosecutor, attorney, and a former law professor at New Mexico State University. So over the past few years, he's become a national figure in the election integrity movement, traveling around the country, speaking about voter fraud, election systems, and what he believes is really going on behind the scenes. He also talked about personally meeting with Donald Trump back in 2021, sitting down with him and discussing the lawsuits and what happened after the 2020 election. He described that meeting as realizing Trump already understood the situation and was operating on a level most people weren't seeing. Now, here's what he's actually saying in his presentation. Now, just so you guys aren't missing it, the presentation that he made here at the Patriots Conference, I'm going to link that over here. Sorry, right here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so these are the videos. You guys can click these and watch those. Those are part 1 and part 2. David spoke in the afternoon session. Anyway, he believes that the entire political system is being controlled through elections, and that if elections are compromised, then every other issue people argue about doesn't really matter because the outcomes are already decided. And he said that Republicans are wasting time talking about safe issues and avoiding the real one, which is, in his view, election fraud. He wants candidates to openly say the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. And that's, the main focus of everything. So he described the system people are up against as something much bigger than just Democrats versus Republicans. He framed it as a controlled system that selects outcomes rather than reflects votes. He spent time explaining what he believes is happening inside the voting system, saying that the vote totals and reporting patterns show signs of a manipulation. He talked about the batch results, statistical, the statistical stuff that he was talking about, the patterns, and what he believed that the engineering outcomes, they were engineered outcomes rather than natural voting behavior. Dr. Frank also was talking about this. You guys might remember my interview that I did with him. So check that out as well. So David Clements, he argued that the mail-in voting is one of the biggest tools used in that system and pushed for voter ID, proof of citizenship, and ended mass mail-in ballots. He also said that election night reporting itself is misleading, and it described it as a political theater that shapes perception rather than showing the real results. He talked about data being uploaded from machines and claimed that instead of sample additions of votes, there was patterns of changes and adjustments that don't match how real votes should behave. He made the point that most politicians either don't understand the system or they won't talk about them because they benefit from those systems that they're part of. He pushed the idea that people need to stop relying on politicians and instead get directly involved at the local level. So show up in person, stand together, put pressures on officials. He wants people to dive deeper into how everybody thinks and at a national level too. He talked about presidential authority under Article 2 and argued that the commander-in-chief has powers that can override other parts of the government when the country is under threat. He brought up historical examples like Abraham Lincoln suspending habeas corpus, and they used that to argue the extraordinary actions that presidents have. He then connected to what he believes is happening now, talking about continuity of government and the idea that if a system has been compromised, there are other mechanisms in place that can be used. So he also talked about the possibility of military involvement, tribunals, and the use of JAG officers, saying that the normal legal system wouldn't be able to handle cases of that scale. He also claimed that there's information that has not been released yet publicly, including data, investigations, and evidence related to voting systems that he believes will eventually come out. So he's referencing things like seized machines, intelligence sources and behind the scenes activity that he says supports what has been, what he's been saying. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens with that. He also talked about Trump's statements over the years, pointing to things that Trump had said about voter ID, election security, and the executive authority, and argued that those statements are signals of a larger plan. He believes Trump is not relying on Congress or the courts, but instead he has been allowing time for people to wake up while preparing to act using his executive authority. He said that if an action had been taken immediately in 2020, that it could have caused major unrest, and that the delay had allowed more people to see what's happening. He's also talked about future elections, suggesting that federal authority could be used to change how elections are conducted, including potentially using the National Guard to oversee or count ballots. So he's tied all that together by saying that the country is not dealing with normal politics, but a system that has been controlling outcomes. And Dr. Frank has also spoken about that. So be sure you check out that video. But really, what's happening is that they're fixing the elections, and everybody kind of knows that already. Public involvement, it's happening at levels of authority that we aren't really seeing. So that was the core of what he presented at the Patriots Conference. Everything he talked about centered around the idea that elections are the foundation of everything else, and that until that's addressed, nothing else that people argue about is really going to matter. So going on to another topic. So we've got things in the community. We're talking about Republicans versus Democrats here. We've got people on social media. David Clements says, get off of social media. Here I am, the social media director for the local Republican Party. And I'm like, well, David, I'm kind of a nerd. So, that's what I do. So anyway, but, we're talking again about personal attacks. So, I stick to what, the Constitution, it's important. The First Amendment, stuff like that. And I made a statement. I said, I don't go after people who they are. I stick to what they say and what they do. If someone else comes at me or my friends, I'll respond. And I aim to do it with facts and a level head rather than turning it into a personal fight. If someone has created a real problem in the community, I'll speak on that behavior and explain why I think it's harmful. But I'm not interested in tearing people down just because we disagree. So I might not call them out directly. I've done that in the past, and I actually had to apologize to that person who was a Democrat. Anyway, social media is full of headlines, memes, misinformation, designed to get us angry at one another. And I think that's what David Clements was really touching on with that. I think we all need to slow down, verify what we're seeing, think before reacting. Disagreement is absolutely normal, but turning neighbors into enemies over opinions, that sucks. I want to expand on that a little bit because it was just a general idea. It's something that we're actually dealing with right now in our own community. We've got people locally who are going online and stirring up hatred, directly calling out and attacking members of this community. Actually, this has been going on for 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. As a party, we do not condone that kind of behavior, not at all. And to be clear, this isn't about taking away anybody's First Amendment rights. I should probably say that again. This is not about taking away First Amendment rights. People can say what they want. People do have a voice. But just because you could say something doesn't mean you should be using that voice to anonymously tear people down. And I mean anyone. It doesn't matter who it is, who they are. Yes, even Democrats. We're all part of the same community here. In my opinion, we shouldn't be sinking to that kind of garbage. Social media already does a great job of trying to pit people up against each other. It pushes outrage. It pushes division. It feeds people the kinds of content that gets them angry and keeps them fighting. I've seen it. We don't have to play into that, folks. People are going to have different values, different religions, beliefs, different political views, different ideas about how things should or shouldn't be run. And that's perfectly normal. What's not is turning that into personal attacks and trying to damage each other. Right now, there's a toxic mess of bubbling up in this community. And like I said, it's been going on 6 months, maybe more. Um, it's coming from some people, and I'd like, to tell these people to go out and buy a puppy and chill out. That's kind of my line. Um, but this particular issue isn't coming from the left necessarily, and it's happening locally, and they've got their own uh, problems with this kind of behavior too. Again, I'm not trying to shut anybody up, um, you know, but knock it off. Look in the mirror, you know, you know who you are. It's not helping. It's not helping any of us. It's making us look worse as a party. It's damaging our reputation in the community. And you know what? We actually care about this community. We're trying to do what we can to build it up. And I know that I've made mistakes in my past, and I've had to apologize. Like I said earlier, I'm not perfect. I might make more mistakes, but come on, folks. We need to come together. Anyway, that's all I have to say, folks. And again, happy April Fool's Day. I just forgot it was April Fool's. What else happened today? Well, we had a NASA thing take off today. What was that? The Artemis. So they're sending people to the moon. I think the last time that happened was what, 1974, right? So that's pretty cool. Anyway, David Clements and Dr. Douglas Frank, we've got these great men talking about election integrity. So I encourage you all to watch these videos, and you all have a great rest of your day. Talk to you later. Thank you.